figured.
I always remember that high school teachers would wish it was just quiet, and then college professors always wish it was a little louder, you know?
Yeah, there's got to be a happy medium there, doesn't there?
It's rare.
Yeah, I don't mind quiet, but it's almost eerily so. Calm before the storm, so to speak. All right, we're going to continue on with what we've been working on in After Effects in terms of our green screen animation for Tesla. Before we work on that, I do want us to take a look at the FIP and just address the next couple of weeks. So we're in week 11 right now. Week 12 next week will be our last class together with content. And we'll be continuing on doing some more animation stuff that we've been working on this term, in the second part of the term since midterm. And then week 13 will be a graded checkpoint, works as it did last term. You'll submit a PDF overview of where you are in the process, provide examples, that sort of thing. I don't need working files, I don't need video files, I don't need 3D files. I just need some sort of document, PDF ideally, that just gives a synopsis of where you're at and sort of some of the visuals that are in there. Again, I'll be grading the aesthetic and the brand consistency and all those things that we've been doing since Visual Communications and Design and Image 1, right? So that will be the graded checkpoint. I put in a request to do that through Zoom. It's again explaining, as I did last term, it's the sort of the one scenario with the Zoom delivery during the past couple of years that I thought worked really well, giving feedback. That way it's one-on-one, you can upload whatever you want to the chat window, I can open it, and then I can go through the document with you. And I just find it's a little bit more fluid and a little bit more effortless than when it's face-to-face for that. So I put in a request, whether it happens or not, we'll see. But either way, it's either going to be a Zoom session or it's going to be here live in class. Okay, and I'll just sit with you individually if that ends up being the case. It's likely to be Zoom, so plan for that, but I haven't heard back yet, so we'll wait for the confirmation. And that will be week 13, and then of course leading into week 14 is when your FIP is due. And there are different requirements that are due for different courses, so I'll address that in a moment. And then the following Tuesday, Wednesday will be your presentations. I'm going to get the sign-up sheet out to all of you as soon as possible. I'll get that drafted up this weekend and get it out. And then it's a Google Doc. You just sign in and just put your name down at whatever time slot suits you best for those 2 days. Okay? Once the time's been taken, it's been taken. You just have to find the next available slot that will work for you. And then once you present on the Tuesday or the Wednesday, you are officially done my work for IDP. I can't speak for other IDP courses or your COM or other courses that you might have, your RIT classes, that sort of thing, okay? Let's go through this. Let's go through the breakdown again of what you are being asked to do for the FIP. So, not surprisingly, you need a fully functional, responsive website with dynamic content, okay? So that is the deliverable that you need to have done. And that will be all driven through your GitHub, okay? I don't need access to your repository, nor do I want you putting design files or 3D files or video files up to the repository, up to GitHub, unless, of course, they are part of your website, right? So if it's a video that's going to be on your website, then yeah, it needs to be included. But outside of that, there doesn't need to be any working files in there. I know Trevor always stresses that point, and I'll help to stress it with him. I won't be checking it. So if you put any design files in there, it's lost on me because I won't even look for it. Even if you provide me with the GitHub link, I'm not going to it, okay? Because that's not how I'm grading stuff. If you want me to grade it, it's got to be a file. It's got to be submitted to the submission folder for this course, And it's got to be a working file. I need XD files, not links. I need the XD file. I need the associated files with that. Now, you can always supply a link as well. That's not a problem, but I do need the physical, locally saved file. Photoshop files, I need those. I need your Illustrator files for your logo. I need all of that because I need to go through and see how things were constructed. That's part of how your grade is derived, is from the workflow and that process work with those working files. So that is what I need. I do not need your GitHub information, your link, or anything else. I'm not grading your website, okay? Your website is for your web class and your authoring class, where there are web deliverables that need to be submitted for that. I am grading just the design work. So the benefit of that being, let's say you completely, and this is a completely random, not likely to ever be the case scenario for any of you, but let's say you totally mess up the code. For whatever reason, it just went south really quickly and you weren't able to recover from it. You submitted it, website's not working. Well, you've got the design class at the very least, if not your 3D course, to offset the grade that you might get for not having had successfully completed the web and or the authoring component of that assignment. So the design work, I'm just grading your working files. And as long as you have a wireframe that's prototyped, that's all that matters. I just need to see that. I need to see the setup, the alignment, the configuration, the workflow, the branding, the overall aesthetic, consistency, so on and so forth. If you're not successful and able to create that as a website, that's not what I'm looking for. I'm just looking at the design work. Was it a good design? Yeah, it was. And then that will help to offset perhaps maybe any issues that you might have in your other courses where that content didn't work out the way that you saw it working out. I don't imagine that's going to be an issue for anybody, but that's why we do it that way. That's why I don't grade from the finished website. Okay? But you do need to have a functional prototype for your mobile, your tablet, and your desktop, as is directed by you from your digital media theory course with Joe. I believe you have Joe for that, don't you? Is it Joe or Bob? Joe. So Joe will stipulate that, and I'll be looking at that as well. I'm a little less concerned with the prototyping because that's more Joe's end of things, but I am looking at, is there a finished wireframe and detailed wireframe, and is there a finished design? It's all one of the same thing, right? You start with a wireframe, basic wireframe, it goes to a detailed wireframe, and then ultimately you finish it up with a finished design that you prototype. That's what you put in front of your client. The prototyping isn't I'm not as concerned with that because that's not my end of things, but certainly the finished design in XD is what I'm looking for. You need a brand document. We'll go through that in a moment, but essentially the same thing that you submitted week 4, or was it due week 5? Maybe it was due week 5. And your homework too. And you started that, now you just need to complete that. It's not a brand document in the sense that it's a full brand guideline, which could be 30, 40, 50 pages long, sort of like the Jamie Oliver and the TELUS document and that sort of thing. This is a style guide, all right? So it just addresses the style characteristics, the style features, the aesthetics, the branding of your brand identity for your product, for your FIP. We need an infographic commercial in there. That can be anything you want it to be. I know you have some requirements for Joe in terms of video. I know you have some requirements in terms of 3D. I think John wants you to do a 360 or something like that. So that will all suffice for that requirement. I just need to see a video of some kind on your website so that there's just more content there than just static images. If it's your Cinemagraph that you're doing for homework and you want to just stick your Cinemagraph in there, or maybe you continue to work on the Cinemagraph and you fix it up and you get it in there, that qualifies for me. If it's just Joe's requirement, it's a video, that's fine. If it's John's and there's some video component to it on your website, that's fine. I just need to see some form of animation because that's what we're doing this term, is working on web animations. So whatever animation you have in there, that's what I want to see. It could be CSS, could be JavaScript animation. The more you get moving as part of your website, the more you sort of satisfy that component, okay? Then we need a mock-up of the packaging and the package template. Now, someone asked me a good question yesterday during my section 2 class where they were talking about the label. So don't confuse the label with packaging, okay? The label is a label, packaging is packaging, okay? So when I buy this product, it might come in a box. So what does the box look like? What is the design that's on the box? That is the packaging to which I refer. That is number 5. It can be anything you want it to be. You can mock it up, fold it up, create it in 3D, and put your bottles, your 3D bottles and or your 3D cans into that package in 3D and render out a still. That's that. If you want to go online and get a mock-up of packaging that you think would be suitable for your products and then put design on top of it, that qualifies for that. If you get a flat template and you cut it up, or you print on it, you cut it up, you fold it up, and you take a photo of it, very much like what we did in week 5 for our little tiny tea light candle, that is packaging. I just need to see some sort of 3-dimensional object that's gonna hold your bottles or your cans, whatever you're doing, okay?
Does it also need to have like the designs of the brands on it?
Yes, it needs to be fully designed. It needs to be fully designed. And then I've also supplied you with a flat template for a case, and it's a beer case, I think, but it can be, you can substitute whatever bottle you want or can for that packaging. So you can use that as well. That's already uploaded there in the FIP section. So you can use anything you want. You just need some sort of visual representation of how this product would ultimately be sitting on the store shelf. Okay, if I were to buy more than one, they were put together in a case of 4 or 6 or 8 or 12 or whatever it is. And then anything that you do in terms of original photography, artwork, graphic design assets that help to sort of fill in the pages of your FIP website, please include that. Just make a PDF and put in all your sketches, all your rough work, all your brainstorming concepts. Whatever you've done, you've put work into this, I'm hoping, beyond just the deliverables here, so include that. I'd love to see that. I always like to see the origins of ideas and how people came through the process to end up where they did with the finished website. So if you have any of that stuff, don't just let it go to waste. Not waste, because obviously you've used it for the FIP in some way, but include that in a document, a PDF document. I can open it up and go, oh, look how they did this, look how they did that. I love seeing that type of stuff. So those are the deliverables specifically to the design and image, speaking to the design and image course. Okay, so as long as you do those things, and we've started all those things, you've already started your wireframing and your build for your website. So the XD wireframe layout thing should not be an issue. That should already be more or less finished, if not finished. Your brand documentation, you already did part of that as a homework assignment, homework 2, so hopefully you just can open that up and finish it, fill it in. Infographic, like I said, could be the cinematograph that you're currently working on that you're going to hand in next week or by next week. Or Joe's video or John's video would work. And then a mock-up of some kind for the packaging of your product, okay? Now we'll just go through the style guide really, really quickly, just so that nobody is, and I'll post a recap of all of this on the homepage. I always do a homepage recap closer to when things are due for a project of this size, so that you can just go through the list and go, yep, that's on. I'm hoping you'll say that. Yep, got it all done, and I'm ready to hand in. I'm just polishing it up, and I'm gonna get it in a good 2, maybe, here's wishful thinking, 3 days before it's actually due. Hand it in on Saturday or Friday. And if you're like, oh, I made a mistake, I didn't finish this, or I was still working on this, you can always upload again. But at least you've got one in there. You made the Dropbox. You made the submission deadline. It may not be the finished product, and maybe you don't end up finishing it, and you're like, whatever I handed on Friday, I'll just have to go with that. Or by Saturday, or maybe late Sunday, as you're approaching that time, you're like, oh, I got this finished. It's good. I'm gonna try to upload it, And if you miss the deadline or something happens and it doesn't upload, hey, at least I got the original submission, right? I have something, and you're not gonna lose 30% for not getting it in on time. So hand something in early, and then the folder is set up to just take multiple submissions. So there's no harm in you uploading the assignment twice or 3 times. I'm not suggesting, every day you upload it, because I don't want to do that. I just go to the latest one. But if you're like, the latest one's not right, it didn't work, I want them to grade the one before that, just in your comments say, take this one, the second one or the third one down, and that's the one I'll grab. Whatever you communicate to me to grade, that's what I will grade, okay? But get it in early, even if you're still working on it. Get it in a day or 2 before, so that it's there and it's a safeguard. Okay, I can continue to work on it. If whatever reason I missed the Dropbox deadline for this one, it's not great. I might lose some marks because I did more work and it's better than it was 2 days ago, but at least you get the full grades for what you handed in 2 days ago, okay? I can't stress this enough. Do not use the Fanshawe style guide that we did in class, all right? Do not use that. I mean, use it as an example, use it as a reference for sure, because it's something we worked on, but please don't hand in the Fanshawe style guide and just repurpose that with your own information, okay? That's lazy, and it's not custom creating content to tailor it to the specific needs of your FIP. So please don't use the Fanshawe style guide as the base for your own style guide for the FIP. Please use Adobe InDesign. I don't like to be too prescriptive with the software. If you don't want to use InDesign, don't use it. Use whatever you want. Use Illustrator, use Photoshop. They're not as elegant for the purposes of creating a multi-page document. You can use XD as well. It doesn't matter what you use, as long as you're able to create a PDF from whatever program you use. That's the main thing. I would recommend that you use InDesign, because it is not difficult to use, and you can create a multi-page document very, very easily with it. And that's what we've been using in class to do this. But you're not forced to do it, but I would like the InDesign file, if you did do it in InDesign. I'd like to be able to open up that file, okay? If you did it with another application, you don't need to supply me with the application file, because I may not have that application. I'll just grade from your PDF, okay? But I'm trying to stress to you that Adobe InDesign is very well suited for a multi-page document of this kind, which is being set up for print. The contents of your style guide must include the following. You need to have a title page, okay? Something that right away communicates visually the brand identity, the aesthetic of what it is that you're doing for your FIP, okay? Should have no confusion whatsoever when I look at one style guide over another. This is clearly this individual's, and this is clearly this individual's, because they're styled differently. So title page does, or cover page does a good job of doing that. Table of contents, some sort of chronological breakdown of where I can find the bulleted contents of this list in that PDF document for your style guide, okay? What do you need to include? I need logo sketches. So those can be photographs, those can be scanned. You just pull them into your document, and there they are, and I get to see how you sketched up all these ideas, and you decided on the finished one that you then continue to work on as your finished logo. Then I need a black and white, which is a high contrast version of your logo. That's the most important part of your logo. Black and white, high contrast allows us to see the positive negative relationship of your logo. And when there's a nice even balance between those two things, the logo's likely to work better for you for all sort of case scenarios that you might have in terms of design. So at the very least, your logo should be vectorized, probably in Illustrator, and it should be black and white first. Now, if you have color as part of your logo, then you will likely need to have a grayscale version of that same logo. And by grayscale, I don't mean gradient. I mean this part of the logo is dark gray, this part of the logo is mid-range gray, and this part of the logo is light gray. So that when you go to use your colors, you know which brand colors are going to be best suited for those parts of the logo based on the gray values, okay? And then once you've done the grayscale, you just swap the gray values out for the color version, which will be derived from your brand identity, your color choices for your brand. Once you've done that, if you have a color version, it might just be a black and white logo, in which case you just include black and white. Clear space, so we know that clear space again is an invisible region that exists around your logo so that other content can't impede upon that logo. Doesn't come close, so it's like an invisible force field, and it can be whatever you want it to be. And there's nothing saying that it needs to be equal values. You could have a 1/4 inch on the left side, and if it were a ragged right logo, you might have 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch of space on the right-hand side. So the values can be whatever you want them to be. Look at the TELUS document to see an example of what I'm talking about there in terms of different clear space regions for a logo. But you need to include that with some sort of value. You can use any metric that you want. My recommendation, my preference, is a proportional value. So taking an element out of your logo and using that element as the spacing characteristics of your clear space. It makes it very, very easy for someone to just look at it and go, okay, I understand how this is supposed to be set up in terms of clear space based on what I'm seeing. Whereas if you're using units of measure, we only know what units of measure are typically when we actually measure them out with a ruler or whatever we're using to measure with. I want to see a representation of your logo at 48 pixels, that's roughly about 1/2 inch, and 49 pixels, which again is roughly about 2 inches in height. So we're talking about height there, okay? Your logo could be a completely different width, but what is your logo at 48 pixels high, and what is your logo at 192 pixels high? That gives us a good overview of what it will look like at larger sizes, the 192, and it also gives us a good overview of what we'll get at its minimum size, which is 48 pixels. I want a full color study, just like you would find in the Jamie Oliver brand document, or the TELUS, or even the Fairchild one that we did. So the swatches depicting all the colors with a value. You can use hex value. I like RGBA, because if I'm using CSS, I use RGBA, I don't use hex. So I'd like to see RGBA. If you want to include Pantone, that's wonderful, because now you're getting it set up for print, and it's universal. And since it's got a Pantone value, there's a great likelihood that it's going to have process color CMYK, so you can include those as well. The more, the merrier, all right? You're giving more to a designer in the future working with this brand, the information that they can use for print and for web. And then I need a typographic study. That's all lowercase, uppercase. Some typefaces or type families don't have uppercase. They might just be lowercase, so that might be the case. But generally speaking, there's usually a lowercase, uppercase equivalent. And then you want to show 0 through 9 numeric values, and then any special character values. Ampersand, hashtag, anything that you might use as a special character in your copy. Okay? So that should be depicted for each typeface that you are using for your brand. Okay? Anybody want to take a crack at what a typeface is? That's a throwback from visual communications. Does anybody remember what a typeface is? Because it's in the instruction, and if you don't know what a typeface is, then the instruction doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Well, it gets quiet all of a sudden.
Different type of text.
That's a good general response. Now let's get a little bit more specific. It's good, you're right. But let's get more specific. What about that text?
So there is Arial and there is different text where you use them for your website or like for your document or something.
Okay, yeah, it is the exact size and style within a type family. So Arial is a type family. Times is a type family. Comic Sans is a type family. Helvetica is a type family, all right? But within each one of those, with the exception of Comic Sans, I always say Comic Sans, but within each of those, there are different style characteristics. Italicized, bolding, those are style characteristics that are different than regular, which is typically the default. So if a type family has variations to it, such as regular, bold, and different sizes, a type face is the specific instance of that type family. So Helvetica Light 14 point would be an example of a typeface. And so it would be in that exact style that you would depict that entire alphanumeric representation in your document. Okay, you just need to look at all the brand documents that I supplied to you, and I think it's in week 4, in the contents of week 4, and you can just look through them. They're all set up more or less the same to depict the same stuff. And then you just need a closing page, which quite literally could be a flat page of color, maybe your logo. That could be the closing page, or just a flat bit of color, right? And then you're done. I need the PDF. That's all I really require. If you do use Adobe InDesign, I'd love to see your Adobe InDesign file, but I'm not really grading the process of how you created your style guide. I'm more interested, or 95% of it really comes down to what does the style guide communicate, and is it communicating the things that I've asked you for it to communicate? Okay. All right. Any questions? Any concerns about anything? FIP is going smoothly. Everybody's polishing it up, probably thinking, hey, maybe I'll submit it this weekend. Just give myself a couple weeks to not really just focus on myself, just take care of myself in the next couple weeks. And then maybe I'll sort of just dabble with it. I'm hoping that's where everybody's at this point. And you're probably not. It's a big assignment, and you're likely using all your time appropriately to get it all finished up, let's hope. Okay, well, if there aren't any questions about it, then we'll move on. But if anything comes to mind, either during today's class or at any point before it is due, send me an email, and I can address your questions and your concerns at that point, okay?
I just have a question about this assignment.
Mm-hmm.
So, which of this is due exactly? Is this one due?
That's due next week. So the Tesla Cinematograph is due next week. Okay, that's your homework for assignment. We haven't talked about this yet, but that's a good question. So if you're in the submission folder, you're noticing there's a new submission category, and that's for the work that we're going to do in class today. It's an in-class deliverable. Now hold your breath. It's worth, hold on, it's worth 2%. Okay, so it's worth 2%, which is not obviously a whole lot, but I want to give you something for doing it, okay? Now, if you completely mess it up, I'll give you 1% for handing it in and attempting it. So you get 1% today if you just hand something in that's relevant to what we're working on. You'll get 1%. If you do it successfully, that's where the additional 1% comes from. That's 2%. Okay? That leaves us with one remaining percent this term that is unaccounted for, and we'll probably use that up next week. So that's what that is in reference to. Today you'll be submitting to that submission folder. Actually, I will leave it open for the weekend. I'll shut it down probably on Saturday, so it gives you a little bit of time to work on it. But I am going to give you class time today to work on that. Okay? Yeah, so that's what that is. And we'll get started on that now. So if there aren't any questions, let's go to the contents of week 11. Download that folder. You're welcome to work with what you started working with or what you created last week. If you want to pick up where we left off, that's fine. If you were following along. If you weren't following along, just go to week 11 and download this assets folder. And I'll download it and I'll work directly from that folder. Now, I didn't upload the arm reach video from last week. So, if you weren't here last week, you'll need to go to the web animation for week 10, and you need to grab this green screen armreach.mov. So you need to download that as well. Up. So if we've got that, what you can do before you double click on the Tesla interior main movie, which is the After Effects file that we created last week, if you want to go to wherever you've downloaded that green screen arm reach movie and pull it into this folder, you'll need that, because if you open this After Effects file, it's going to tell you there's a missing file. And the file that's missing is the green screen, because I didn't include it with this because we already had it going last week. And it's 18 megabytes, it adds to the file size. So once it's in there, double click on the Tesla interior main movie, and it opens up, and it should be good to go. There shouldn't be any warnings. If there is a warning, if you're seeing sort of vertical color bars for any one of the icons over here in your project window, just click on that file and then control click or right click if you have a right click option. And you can replace the footage. Currently mine's not asking for it because there's no issue, but I can replace the footage or reload the footage. So what I would do is I do reload, and if that is unsuccessful, then what you'll need to do is then go to replace footage and target the footage wherever it's saved on your desktop. But if you did what I just asked you to do, it shouldn't be asking for there should be no errors in this. Okay, and this is what we did last week. So we just got everything sort of set into place and worked with our green screen and masking. And then slid down this moon roof right here, okay? So even if you didn't get all that done last week, this file, it's done. Okay, we have it done. Okay, so yeah.
My file's just outright refusing to open for some reason.
Is it? Do you have last week's file? Like the one that you were working on last week during class? Because you can just use that one instead if you want.
I don't think so.
What's it saying when you go to open? Is anybody else having issue when they go to open the After Effects file? No? It could be are you on a school computer though?
Yeah.
Oh, that is very strange. What's it saying when you try to open it?
Apparently it can't be opened with this version.
That doesn't make any sense if you're on the school computer. All right, I'm going to save out a copy for an earlier version. That should be an issue if no one else is having a problem, but if it's saying that, it's saying that. There's nothing we can do about it. So what I'll do is I'll save a different version of it, and let me pop that open. You should have no problem with this one. So let me pop that up to today's folder and give it a go. All right, so it's there. So download the After Effects file in week 11, and just download that. Then once it's downloaded, pull it into the folder with the other one with all the contents, and that should fix your problem. So I've saved it to an older version of After Effects. How'd that work? Is that opening? Everyone else good? Everybody has their file open, no missing content?
Well, it opens, but it's all broken.
It's all broken? Did you move the file to the folder that has all your PSDs and your JPEGs, all the original source assets?
Yeah.
Okay. You may just need to relink it then. So what you do is you go to the project window, and any file that has that sort of that broadcast signal, it's just a bunch of color bars, vertical bars, click on it, and then just go control click, and just go replace footage. We won't even bother trying to reload it. Let's just go replace, and then just go and find the file you're looking for, click on it, and then just say open, and it will replace it. It will fix it. Because it's all the same content. We haven't changed any of the content. Okay, no one else is having any issues. Let's move ahead with it. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to unlock our arm. Okay, so that's our MOV, that's our video. Everything else keep locked, but unlock that. Go to green screen -movie, which is the one you need to unlock, and double click on the icon. Again, that takes us inside of our movie. So we're isolating just the video file. Keep everything else locked, so we've got an adjustment layer there. And we have a shadow, they're locked, we'll leave that in place. Everything else should be good. So what we want to do is go to the green screen, double click on the icon here. Okay, so it opens up, and then toggle it open. And then you'll see a thing in there called motion trackers. Motion trackers. Does everybody see that? Click on motion trackers and then just hit delete. Okay? And maybe it's not going to delete it that way. So we'll pop it open. We'll just go to the open up motion trackers. We'll just click on the tracker one, hit delete there, and then it will delete the whole thing. We gotta actually delete the object that's creating the track. And then that will disappear. And I'm just going to zoom out to 25% so we can see. Okay, go into toggle open transform. Toggle open transform. Click on the stopwatch for anchor point. Okay, because the anchor point was on, we're going to turn it off. And I'll explain why we're doing this in a moment. Okay, but I just want to get everybody on the same page. Okay, toggle open mask, and just make sure mask says none, okay? So over here, where it says mode, which is right beside the source name, just make sure it's saying none, okay? What that's doing is it's just disallowing the mask at the moment, so the mask is not active. It's not actually masking anything, okay? When we go back to add, that's when we apply the mask. We're saying, okay, we want the mask to be active, we want it to hide wherever that mask region has whatever's been applied, okay? So we're gonna go to add, or if you've done add, let's just go back to none so that we can see the full video that we start with. Then hit I on your computer just to make sure that we're starting on the time code 00, okay? So we're right back at the start of our timeline. So last week we worked with our green screen, and we used a key light effect to isolate the green so that we could remove that from the video, from the scene, on a frame-by-frame basis, okay? And we talked about it not being a great green screen if it were a flat screen, it being taped down properly, and even extended beyond this wall, we wouldn't even have to mask it, okay? It would just work because it would be flat and the value of green would be consistent. But because it's not being taped down very well, because part of the wall is showing, and because wind got into underneath that green screen, it created a lot of distortion. Okay, so we had to go and fix that. So we did the key light to get rid of the green and create our what would essentially be a video mask, an alpha channel. And then we went in and put this, you can see the orange. This is the actual mask that we drew on this video to get rid of any information that sits outside of it. So this would be all black anyway because of the green screen, or mostly, but then there was the wall and the tape. So this gets rid of all of that. And then we animated it so that the arm could go up and the arm could go down and incorporate that movement, but get rid of everything else. Okay, so we had to do a little bit of extra work because I did sloppy green screen work. But that's, you know, sometimes you get some bad footage, or you get some bad photography, and you got to fix it up. That's part of what we have to do, is make it work. So we got it working. Now, one thing we didn't have a chance to do last week, and I wanted to, it's best to do this part of the process first, then do the green screen stuff. But I wanted to make sure we had enough time last week to do all of the green screening and the mask and get our arm with an adjustment layer and get it in our scene and get it working and then interacting with our scene. That was what I wanted to achieve last week. This week, what we want to do now is say, okay, let's work with the raw footage and make sure that the footage is as good as it can be. Now, if we look at the footage, if you hit spacebar and play it, you can watch it and you'll notice, you know, yeah, the arm moves, it interacts, and away we go. It doesn't look like there's much going on. But let's put our cursor, let's hit the spacebar, hit I on your keyboard, zoom into at least 50%, and I'm just going to scroll to some part that's a fixed part of the video. So the tape is not moving, so I'm going to put my cursor right on the edge of that tape, right in the corner. Then I'm going to hit spacebar again, and look at what happens. Look at how that tape is moving around, and that cursor's not moving, but the tape is clearly not staying in the same spot. Now this camera was on a tripod. This is a tripod shot. So that is how much movement is just naturally occurring in this scene. So how do you account for that? Well, it could be wind. We know there's some wind getting in under the green screen, so it's possible that is affecting our camera. And it also could be just vibrations in the earth, believe it or not, is enough to make this jostle around a bit. Now we are magnified in, well, we're at 50%, but we're tight enough on it that you know, it looks more overt than it actually is, but there is movement there. So what we want to do is we want to lock it down. We want to say, I don't want any movement. I don't want the person's arm to be going like this as it's also reaching. The person sitting, it should be a still movement. It's just the arm that's moving. The whole person shouldn't be bouncing in the seat like that, which is the fault of our camera. So, like most things in design, we need to establish contrast. Whenever you have good contrast in images, in video, you've got a lot to work with, all right? If the lighting conditions aren't great, then you reduce the ability you have for editing that footage, whether it's video or photography. So, where in this video do you see the greatest degree of contrast? If you go back and zoom out, and keep playing it. So if we go to 33% there, and I play this back, where is there the greatest amount of contrast that is not being influenced by other things? Anything there? Again, we're trying to attach. We're trying to isolate a part of this video where there's a great deal of contrast so that we can help to stabilize the motion. And so we need as much contrast as possible. So where in this entire video do you think is the greatest amount of contrast? Something that we can focus in on. Any ideas? As you're looking at it even in front of you on the screen, can you see anything in this video that you might say is the greatest degree of contrast? Well, if I'm looking at this, the green screen is not ideal. Because the green screen, one, there's movement there. Two, there's color, and it looks very mid-range. And so I'm not getting a high degree of contrast on the green screen. The arm is moving, so even though there might be contrast there, a moving object is not really ideally what you want to isolate to try to lock down movement. So you've got to look at areas where there's very little movement, but there's a great deal of contrast. What do we know about contrast? The best contrast is black and white, right? So where is the black and white? It's on the wall, on the right-hand side. So if we zoom in on the wall, we look for any areas of contrast. So there's texture on this wall, and we look for where, there's a perfect spot right there. So I put my cursor there, there's a great deal of contrast. It's not exactly black, but it is a dark spot on a fairly light gray. And that might be the greatest contrast that we get in the scene. So we're going to use that as our point of interest and to help stabilize this motion. Okay, so what we do is we just click on our image, And I'm gonna zoom out, just so, because the fact that I apply here is gonna plop it right in the middle. So I'm just gonna zoom out so I can see the whole thing. Make sure your green screen object is selected, so your video, okay? So it's selected. And then go up to Window and make sure that Tracker is checked off. And Tracker should be on the right-hand side. We've got a bunch of different panels over here. And as long as the Tracker is checked off, we should be seeing it over here. So we need to get into the Tracker, okay? With the Tracker open, you should be seeing track camera, track motion, warp stabilizer, and stabilize motion. Now I'll tell you right now, warp stabilizer, don't hit it, please don't hit it right now. And stabilize motion do the same thing. The warp stabilizer is a process that After Effects applies on its own. So you're basically saying, okay, After Effects, you go and stabilize this shot, okay? It does a very good job. So if you're trying to stabilize motion in a shot like this, and don't hit it yet, I would hit the warp stabilizer and see what After Effects does. Now the reason I'm telling you not to hit it is because it's a big process, and if you want to crash After Effects and potentially crash your computer, that's the way to do it, all right? Hit the warp stabilizer, and you run the risk, a good chance of crashing down After Effects. I'm not saying it's gonna happen, but depending on what system you're running, it could crash it down because it is quite a process for After Effects to go through. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do the manual application of that, the equivalent, but we're gonna use the one directly below it, which is stabilize motion, okay? And we are going to determine ourselves how we want to stabilize the motion, and we'll do it rather than After Effects doing it. And we likely won't crash doing this process. But anytime you're dealing with video, there's a good chance that you might crash at some point. So we come over here. We are going to just check that motion source is saying our video. So it only has none, saying, hey, I don't want to stabilize anything. Or it gives us one choice, and that is the green screen arm that we're looking at. We could have all sorts of videos in this composition, and so we could target any one of them and stabilize the motion. We only have one video, which only has its own timeline, so it's the only thing that's showing up in our list because it's the only thing with a timeline. So we want to make sure that's checked, and we're going to say stabilize motion. Now nothing changes other than it puts in this track point. So I'm going to zoom in, and it puts it right dead center. That's why we had to zoom out so we could see it. So what I want you to do is just grab the outer box and just make it bigger. Doesn't matter what size, just make it larger. And then likewise, make the inside box larger. And this is just so we can see what we're working with, okay? Within any of this, you can just click and drag. As you drag, you get this great effect where it zooms in on the information that you're dragging. And the reason it does that is because our point of contrast could be a very, very, very small point. So it needs to zoom in so that you can isolate what the greatest amount of contrast is going to be. Now we determined already, green screen, not the place for it. So we're going to zoom over here, keep dragging over, and then we're going to look for that spot on the wall. And we're going to put, it doesn't have to be right on the center, but I'm going to put the X on the center just because I'm using it as a center point. Okay, but it doesn't have to be on the center. Okay, so we have two regions that we have to worry about. The first, or the smaller of the two regions, this one here, that is the region that is going to determine the degree of contrast. So one, we have visually determined that that point is probably the greatest amount of contrast that we have in this video. So we've said that that's the case. Now we have to tailor it to incorporate that amount of that contrast and nothing else. Okay? So right now it's incorporating the green screen. That's not going to work well for us because it's like, well, what do you want me to follow? The green screen, this little dot, what am I supposed to be following? So we got to help After Effects determine what is the region that I want you to focus on, and I want you to analyze. And so we want the greatest amount of contrast, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom down. It doesn't have to be a perfect square, but I do want to get it off of the green screen so that it's only isolating the information on the wall. And right now you can see this is actually pretty good. This is really, really light gray, and then there's this one dark spot. I think that's going to work really, really, really well. Okay, the second region is the degree of flexibility that you have in your overall movement of your video. So don't worry about the green screen, just sort of make it a little bit larger than the first square, the center square. What I mean by this is, how much movement is there? This shot does not move around that much, so the second square doesn't need to be as big. But if I were holding a camera and it was an action scene and I was running and I'm filming it so that it's very kinetic, it almost feels like you're in the scene, the action scene, and you're running with the characters, you might want to do that with a handheld camera so that you get some of that movement. But that movement is much more dramatic. There's much more up and down with that movement. So you would need a larger track point region to incorporate how this dot on the wall is moving around, right? So the more movement you have, the more of that region you need to include. Because what it's saying is, if that dot, with this animation, if that dot at any point goes outside of the region that we determine as the sort of the available area, it will stop the process. It'll say, hey, I lost the track point because it wasn't incorporated in that area. So make it large enough that it can incorporate what you think the movement is going to be. When we put our cursor on the tape, it moved around a little bit, but I don't think it moved around this much. So you just make it approximate to what you think it's going to be. Now it is possible that a leaf could fall into the scene. A bird can fly. I've had that. I've had snow. A snowflake. If it's a large enough snowflake, a snowflake could come across this, and it will throw it off. It will break your track, and that's not a big deal because I can go in and I can physically manipulate it in the time period that that bird or the snowflake passes through, and then I can reestablish the stabilization after the bird or snowflake has passed through the scene. But this track point could be affected by movement, other movement that's happening in your scene. There is no other movement in our scene, so we'll be safe. So I'm going to zoom out so we can see it. 33%. That looks pretty good. Like I say, it's probably a bit aggressive. I could go a little bit smaller. Now, once you've applied that, there's some options. So again, motion source, leave it as is. It's our green screen. Current track is called Tracker 1. We could have multiple tracks. We could be tracking all sorts of different things in this scene. In this case, it's going to create a Tracker 1, which is what we deleted earlier because that was created yesterday. And then we're asking, well, what do we want to do? Well, they're going to stabilize this. If you go into that, we can see we can stabilize it, we can transform it, so we can scale it, rotate it, do all sorts of things. We can do all sorts of control, or rather we have all sorts of different control over how we stabilize this shot. Then what do we want to do? Well, we're trying to fix the X and Y values, X and Y, up and down, left and right movement of this shot. We could also say, hey, if the camera's rotating ever so slightly for whatever reason, we want to lock that as well. And what if the camera was actually moving in a little bit and then it moved out on our scene? We might want to lock that down so we don't have that movement in and out. That's not our issue. It was on a tripod, so there's no rotation. There is no movement in and out. There's no scale factor. But there is X and Y changes that happen in this, so position changes. Edit target is essentially what we just did now, so we could go and click on edit target and perform the same task that way. And then options just gives us more options as to how we edit this. Okay, we won't get into that. It's not necessary for what we're doing. Now, depending on where we are on the timeline, we can analyze back or we can analyze forward. But since we're at the 0, 0 point in our time code, it makes sense for us to analyze forward. So we're going to do that. So go to the play button, which is our analyze forward function. And as long as you're on the first keyframe of our timeline, just hit that plus sign, or not the plus sign, the arrow, rather, the place icon, and give it a minute. So it is processing very, very slowly. This is why this could crash our system. And you can see the green bar The green bar is just the frame-by-frame caching of this video on your computer. So your computer needs to process this, right? So it's going frame by frame and it's caching that so that we can play this video back more smoothly once it's being cached into our system. If you make any changes once this is done, those changes then need to be recached as part of this. So don't expect when you hit the space bar or play that things are going to play smoothly. You got to run it through once to build up the green sequence, and then play it again, and it should play smoothly because it's built into your system cache. It doesn't play real time in the program. It can, but it isn't always necessarily real time. So that's why we produce videos, because a video takes all of the content of our After Effects file or our Premiere file, whatever we built it in, and it takes all the effects, all the processing, all the keyframes, all the value changes, and it sandwiches it down into one file, one video. Okay, that's why videos play smoothly, because it doesn't have to do all of this processing on a frame-by-frame basis. So it takes a while. All right, so mine's been built in. Now you'll notice as soon as you clicked on that Analyze, it plugs in motion trackers, and then the name of it we talked about was Tracker 1. Okay, that's just the default name. We'll have Tracker 2 if we track another thing, we'll have Tracker 3 if we track another thing, right? So we can track multiple things. But let's do this. Let's go into motion trackers. Let's toggle open the arrow for Tracker 1 and take a look at what has been added to this. Okay, so it has gone in and it has analyzed. So it takes the feature center, which is that first box that we're talking about. Then it keyframes confidence, so it's analyzing the movement, and then the attach point. So how we're going to stabilize the motion is we're going to take each frame and attach it to a specific point. And the point that we're using is that little blemish on the wall, or that little dark spot on the wall, okay? And then what it's going to do is it hasn't done it yet because we haven't processed it yet, but it's going to plug in value for our anchor point. So it's going to take the anchor point, which is the center point of our object. In this case, frame by frame, each one of those is a still image, and it's going to have a center point, which is called an anchor point. That anchor point is physically going to move, right, frame by frame, so that each individual frame now is going to be locked into a specific spot, okay? So it hasn't done that yet. We've analyzed it. We've keyframed that analyzed information. Now it's saying, hey, what do you want to do with it? Well, let's take a look. Before we commit to it, let's take a look at what it's done. So let's go to 200%. And I'm just going to do a little bit more. Let's go 800. So 800%. We're magnified quite a bit. So it looks like a lot of movement, but bear in mind that we are magnified in by 800%. But that is how much this video moves on a frame-by-frame basis. So we start here, and I don't know exactly which trajectory it's following because it sort of loops around, but it's going like this, ends here. So that is how much that dot, and therefore everything else in this video, that's how much it's moving on a frame-by-frame basis. So these are all keyframes now that determine where that center point is, that anchor point is. So that's how much movement is happening within our video. And that's a tripod shot. So you can only imagine if it was handheld, how much more movement there would be as a result of that. Okay, it didn't go out of the area, the track area, because it doesn't really move around that much. So we determined an area that was sort of safe, and it didn't go outside of that. So it's done a good job. So now what we need to do is make sure we're back. So hit I on your keyboard, take us back to the 0, point in our timeline. So we're back at the start. And right now it hasn't really done anything. So now we want to commit. We want to say, okay, I want to lock all of this movement down to that. I want it to be right there and not have any of this. So now that we've analyzed it, go and click on apply. If you're not happy with what you're seeing here, maybe the bird flew through or something, you might have to reset it and reanalyze it, or analyze it after the point where the bird enters the scene, so you can lock down what happens after the bird enters, and then also do a lockdown before it happens, and then just manually lock it down while the bird flies through over the course of half a second, whatever it is. But let's go and hit apply. Again, it happens pretty quickly because all it needs to do now is simply move each individual frame to a locked position. So go apply. Now it's going to pop this open. How do we want to lock this down? Do we want to lock it down X? Do we want to lock it down Y? Or do we want to lock it down X and Y? Well, we want to lock it down X and Y. I don't want any movement going like this, which clearly it is doing. And I also don't want any movement that's doing this, which clearly it's doing. If I were filming me throwing a paper airplane and it ascends, and that's the video is just the airplane going up, I may want to take any rocking out. I want you to think my airplane is solid as an arrow. It's flying like an arrow, right? It's dead solid. So I might go in and play with the X and Y values and go, okay, well, I want it to still ascend with Y, but I don't want any X and Y movement. So I might lock down the X and Y movement so my plane only goes straight up in the video. It doesn't do any rocking back and forth, okay? If it's a tennis match, again, you might just want the ball to go over, but not to sort of, go on any particular trajectory, whether it's X or Y, okay? So whatever your animation is, you can choose whether you're using X and Y. So you can go to the arrows here and go, hey, I just want to lock it down on X, or I only want to lock it down on Y. In our case, we want it to be both X and Y. So say okay to that. That happens right away because it's already analyzed it. It's already put in the keyframes for the track point. All it's done now is, if we go down to transform, you'll see that the stopwatch has been activated. There's a keyframe now. If I zoom in on the timeline, you can see those are individual keyframes, frame by frame. And there's an anchor point, okay? Anchor point similar to position. So you are moving with anchor point, you are moving where the center point of this frame is. And as you move the center point, the whole frame moves with it. Okay, so it is a form of position, but it's being positioned by the center point, okay? And so that's why it goes in and puts in an anchor point position, and it does it that way. So now, if we go and put our cursor on that dot again, we zoom in, find that dot, and then hit play, you can see, there's a little bit of, that's just natural video distortion that's happening there. You can see that cursor at 800% magnification is not moving off that tiny little dot. So it has stabilized the motion very, very well, okay? Okay, I'm gonna go back to my mask one, make sure it says add, because I want to get rid of the wall now. I just wanted to use the wall to help stabilize the shot. So I'm gonna put mask, add back on. Then I'm gonna go to the Tesla interior movie, and then I can hit play and away we go. Now again, it doesn't really change that much with our video because we didn't see a lot of that jostling around anyway, because we're only focusing on the arm. So that movement was fairly imperceptible, but nevertheless, it makes sense to lock it down. And there might be a situation where you're like, wow, this thing's really hopping around, I need to stabilize it. That's how you do it, okay? So you can use the warp stabilizer and allow After Effects to do, and it's gonna do the same thing that we just did. It's gonna isolate the highest degree of contrast, and it's gonna set up the regions that are gonna analyze that information on a frame-by-frame basis. So warp stabilizer works really well. Just make sure you file save before you apply it because it could crash your system. That's not to suggest that stabilized motion couldn't stabilize or couldn't crash your system as well. It could, because you're basically doing the same thing. It just, this is a staggered process. This is all sort of clustered together. And it sort of locks you out of After Effects. Warp Stabilize, you can't do anything while it's analyzing it. So it can be a little bit annoying. Okay, so now we've locked down the shot. Hit space bar just to stop, and then let's save it so that we don't lose any of that information. Now, if we want to create a glitch effect, I'm not saying we want to create a glitch effect, but if we wanted to create a glitch effect, if we wanted to look like the arm all of a sudden just sort of jumps up or does something weird, what we need to do is just go into the video, toggle open the transform options, isolate any one of the keyframes, and then just change the anchor point value. So just change it to whatever you want it to be. And then if you go back and play it, you'll notice as I play it, that will hop at some point. You might not even see, there it is, it just kind of hops. See how it glitched? So if you're looking for a glitch effect, that's how you do it. You could just go in and very quickly just change a couple of the keyframes, and you can get kind of a neat little distortion there. But for the purposes of this, we don't want to do that. Oh, it's still doing that. I gotta go into the movie. There we go. Okay. So, what you're going to do for that 2% is I want you to provide the additional functionality for the moonroof. So, the way it actually looks in the video is it's a dotted line. You actually see through. It's perfectly transparent, but there is an outline around the shape of the roof visual and or window, and it's a dotted line. But I just made it solid so we can see it a little bit more clearly with what we're doing. But what I want you to do is now take the slider that's over here, which is the mechanical process, the actual the graphic user interface element that you would be interacting with. So you may not necessarily know you can click on the visual of the top of the car on the moonroof and drag it. But this is telling you you can, right? Whether it's open or it's just vent, and right now it's saying close. So as soon as I click on that and I drag it down, then close will change to open, but it would be down here. And then that moonroof would also move in relation to that. So this is the visual representation of the mechanized process, or what would be the mechanized process. So we know it's not mechanized, it's digital, but it's mimicking a mechanized process, right? So what I want you to do is we've already animated the interaction with the finger in the visual on the top of the car, in the dash, but I want you to move this element, this button. I want you to be able to scroll. I want that to move as this is moving, okay? Because it would. There's two ways of opening that window. There might be more, I don't know. But there's definitely two. Clicking on the visual or clicking on that button and scrolling it down. So I want to see if you can create that effect. However you want to do it is entirely up to you. But I'll give you an hour to work on that. You're welcome to work with people around you and go, hey, how are we going to do this? How are we going to overcome this challenge? And then when you have something that you think works and it's paced with the finger moving down and it moves in relation to the other visual that we created with the window there, then submit it. All you need to do is submit the After Effects file. I have all the other associated files. Now, having said that, depending on how you create that visual, maybe you're going back to Photoshop, right? Because that's where we did some of our work. If that's the process that you follow, you need to include your Photoshop file with your submission of your After Effects file so that I can put that in the folder and I've got the right Photoshop file to draw from. Or not, it wouldn't be a Photoshop file. You'd be going back to Photoshop, but you'd be saving out a JPEG or a PNG like we did last week. Or you'd be bringing in the PSD file into After Effects. It depends how you do it. But whatever other files you manipulate for the purposes of doing that, I need that file as well in order to see it function, okay? So again, you're trying to get, this thing is static right now. This is a static image that we worked on last week. This does not move, but as this person interacts with that, that would scroll down with that window, and it would then go to the bottom, and it would say, hey, instead of close, it's open, and that sort of thing. Okay, so you got to do that. Submit that, and I will give you class time to work on that, so you can work with people, and you probably can get it done in class. Most of the people did yesterday, but I will provide some additional time for it. But we only have an hour because I got to get back to do some other stuff outside of this.
Do you have to do the circle around the finger or just the button?
Just the button. Just move the button. Yep.
I think you just have to like the file in general.
What's that?
I did get the track to work, just like the file in general is just kind of strange.
How so? What's strange about it?
As in, like, whenever I try to like add different layers, they just don't really work.
Well, don't forget, everything's locked. So generally, when I put out a file to everybody, I lock everything so that stuff doesn't get accidentally moved. So just first, always make sure that in your timeline, things are unlocked if you're trying to move them.
But I mean, like, the actual, because they only have 3 of the things, but it's like more.
Yeah, so you're inside the video. You need to go to that tab up above there. See how there's 3 tabs there? Those are the individual compositions.
Yeah,
So
I was confused for a second.
yeah. So this Tesla interior movie, this is everything. All right, this is the whole video playing. The Seats movie is just the seats that we put a mask on and we did the camera zoom, okay? Or what looks like a camera zoom. And then the green screen movie is the video that we just worked on, which is the actual video of the arm reaching. So there's 3 compositions. Actually, there's 2 compositions in our main composition.
excuse me, dear.
Yeah,
I just have a quick question.
yeah.
I'm trying to change the color of this instead of you can change.
What is this? Is this the moonroof?
I double it and then.
Oh, so you're gonna reuse that?
Yeah,
Okay,
because
cool.
like the same motion, that's why.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, with that selected, let's go to composition. And, sorry, go to layer, because it's a layer, and go to solid settings.
Right.
Yeah, and then just give that a different color, whatever, I'm
Yeah.
assuming the blue that you're wanting.
I think she has a question for you.
Oh.
So, I'm just not sure where to even begin with this.
Well, this object that we're working on was originally done in Photoshop. We took another display, a dashboard display, and we inserted it into another photo. So what I'd be inclined to do, you don't have to do it this way, but I'd be inclined to go back to Photoshop and say, hey, I need to use this element, so extract that one element out of there, and then bring that into After Effects and animate that.
So, but, like, they have the files, I would cut that button out and then put it back here.
That's what I would do. That's what I would do. I wouldn't cut it out, I'd copy it out. Like, just create a copy of it.
Wait, copy it?
Yeah.
How do I, it's the full background, there's not an individual button.
No, but you can make an individual button out of an image, right, in Photoshop.
So should I cut the button out or make my own button?
I would copy it out.
Copy it out.
Well, it's, you know how to, you can duplicate layers, right, in Photoshop, so it would just be a duplicate of that layer.
But I don't. You should look at the. You see the layers.
No, I know the file. I know the file. So you've got an image in there, and you want to get that button out. So however you want to do it, if you want to cut it out, you can. But what you don't want to do is cut it out so there's a hole there, so that the image that you're using inside of After Effects now has a hole in it. So you've got to sort of figure out how you're going to work it. I can't tell you because that's the nature of the assignment. You've got to figure it out on your own.
I'm just bewildered because I'm trying to get the button into After Effects. Don't.
I know that's the 1% right there. Is how do you do it? That's the challenge. Is I want to see if you can figure it out. If you can't, just try your best with whatever you think the solution is going to be. Submit what you do. There's 1%, right? You may not get the additional 1% because you didn't get it done. But that's what that's what we're doing here. Is just seeing if you can figure it out.
I feel like I'm misunderstanding.
What we want to get a button moving from the top down. And we want it to move with what's already moving, which is the finger and the window that we did last week. So you're just trying to move that button because it's just a button. Like if I had if I had a button here that I can physically move down, and that controlled something else, like maybe it controls the blinds. And so I've got a control where I can slide it down and the blinds come
I
down.
don't think I have the right file or something.
You do.
But it's just like a single still image.
That's it. It's Photoshop, so I mean, you should know Photoshop well enough at this point that you can sort of figure out how to manipulate just that component of the image and then bring it into After Effects and just move it. It's literally just moving something from top
So
down.
are we bringing the entire background or just the button?
Well, that's what I have to leave with you because that's what you're trying to figure out. I can't tell you because I'd be giving you the answer. So, and I can't say it because everybody else will get the answer. So you've got to sort of look at it and go, well, how would I do this?
I genuinely don't know.
Okay, well then, just try your best at it. Just try what you think might work. It either works or it doesn't work.
I don't know how to like get the button into the position where it's even moving or
I can't tell you that because that's the nature of this challenge. So you've just got to sort of think it through and see if you can figure it out. And if you can't, then what you can do, and I think you're probably doing this, is you might create the button in After Effects and just move it there. You know?
Does that count?
Sure it counts. As long as the button moves, I don't care whether it's from Photoshop or it's done in After Effects.
Yeah,
However you get it to move is entirely up to you.
Then wouldn't the still image just still have the button at the top?
Well, that's true. So you need to figure out how do I cover that up. So that button, if you look at it, the button is sitting against a very dark background. It's pretty much a black background.
Yeah, you
So you can just cover that, right? You can cover the whole button
Yeah.
area. You know?
So just like track the same movement as the moonroof and apply the button to there. It's kind of like a long process because I've never done it and I'm trying to do it. So it's just like basically give you an idea what to do because it has to be same time as this, right?
Yeah.
So when he drags it down, it's like same motion.
Same motion goes yeah. So you can keyframe it more or less the same. Wherever the keyframe starts with the moonroof, start the movement of that button at the same point and then end it right where it ends where.
I'm trying to go back to the way you can edit it. I double click by accident, but I don't know how to edit this movie. How can you go back where you can? Oh, okay. I was yeah. So like when you play it, yeah. So because you know it has to be. I duplicated this layer, so this is the same layer. That's why it goes back here. So when this goes down, so yeah, but I like, cause like I duplicated. That's why I was trying to follow the same process. But, yeah. So it works through here, but not like when it's here. So I may have to change the timing of it. So okay, he touched it. I mean, I can't change it because it is like you can't change the color. And then we drag it down. Yeah, so we'll have to put it on there. The mono? No, this is the button. Look. Yeah. I'm like, wait a minute. There must be something. Make sure. So we have to make sure the timing is correct too. Just try it now. See, like when he touched it, I want it to be still there because I mean it's change like that. This has to be straight again. Lead. Probably we have to straighten it. Yeah. I think you will. Yeah, I just copied these, so I was trying to figure it out. Because we will cover that one. Doesn't have to. Try to play it. Yeah. this would go back. I'm not sure. Yeah. See, we can like short to this time, and then the best move would be yeah. No, we have to change this. Just make it like a straight line. See what happens. This one, make a straight line. See, it follows this line, so if you just grab this line straight, it's gonna go straight. Yeah, it's kind of weird because like if you yeah, I mean just experience. Actually, we can do this one and without the tracker, we can move this one. Okay, it's not bad. See, it goes up a little bit and then goes down. Yeah, it needs to be straight, right? Yeah. Let's see what's going on. You wanna go straight? Option B could delete it now. Oh, yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's fine. Just try to move it a little bit more to that side. So like it has to be the distance. I think just snap. Yeah, that's good. And what is that work? Yeah, it has to be the right one. The last one. It's gonna make like a cut. Yeah. I made from the tree. See, it goes out a bit, so this goes in already. Yeah. So we just need to. I believe this wait. So this is the and then this is the motion underneath it. I believe this is the motion underneath it. Yeah. Delete it. Not that. Yeah, and then do the same with the top one. So go back like that. Yeah, one of those. No, no. I mean this like that. Yeah. So one of those. Yeah, one of those. Those are connected. We want to hold it still until the heat. If it's still, then it's fine. See?
That's it?
More when the heat moves.
No,
Like we
we're
have to
not
put
done
the-
it yet. We're gonna put in, we're done, but we just gotta put in the Tesla logo animation, so that will go at the end.
Yeah.
And we'll do a transition
Yeah.
between this and that.
Fine.
Yep, just the After Effects file. Yeah, so if it's a PNG that you put that in with your submission. Yeah, I won't need, like, I won't need, yeah, I won't need any of that. I just need the After Effects file and then anything that you've changed that's in there, so that PNG. Yeah. Let's see it again. Yeah, that's all you need. So the only thing is it should be visible right from the start, right? So it doesn't, it's not, it's a physical button that's always there. It only moves when you interact with it.
Just snap.
See how there's like, those buttons are all there, so that's a button that should always be there. So what you need is to actually start this at the start, and then just start animating it right there. Because the button needs to be there, it should always be there. Yep, you can just drag that whole thing.
Because you know, like when he catches it, like when he
Right here.
when he reach for it, it goes down. It has to be like when you catch it.
Yep, exactly.
With the finger.
Now there it is. Good.
See, like
See,
for the left
move
finger
until-
touch, that one goes.
Now, you gotta sync it up, it looks like it starts to move before she starts to move. So just move that keyframe to the right,
Yeah.
it'll be good. Yeah.
Um,
Is that
let's try a match.
is this that's it, right? This
So he touch.
then
Somewhere, try it. I think it's a bit more because you know, like the thing is not moving, right? Right here. So he's touching it.
so here
Yeah, it would be same as this. You see this that? So this is the moment. So this it's got to be same. Yeah. Now watch. This. Yeah. And then. See, that's all the way to the open. That's all the way.
that's it.
Yeah. And yeah, just come on easy, and then we'll change this background. We'll make this disappear. Only. What I'm saying is, we take this to Photoshop and then we change the background and then because this has to disappear. Mhm. Yeah, you said it. Yes. Nearby? Like what? Oh. Yeah, we'll see, because there's like a gym I go to, they usually hire people too. I'm trying to get a job that is easy. Yeah, I don't know if everybody is easy for me. Come on, get it right here. I made some of it, but not completely. I need still need project. It's too much because you have to add the texture rating and then you have to add the. I haven't done it too yet. Yeah. Because adding texture and you have some. Because you can't down the texture yet. I'm just like change it. Believe can you try? Like what's the point? If you have any question, you can ask.
Do you know how to change the button's color?
I think you will go to the layer and go to the solid settings and then right there. I tried to change it and it didn't change, but you can try it too. I believe that's how you do it because it's only that. And then that. Let's see if it changes. Yeah. Then you can add text to it maybe. this part, you know what we can do is like, I think we can do it in Premiere After Effects without saving this and save like this and this. Just copy this.
Sorry? I'm giving you some time now, but I won't close it. Yeah.
Yeah,
There
I
are.
don't want to work on it after. I don't want to.
Yep.
Yeah, you get the idea. I would say like
What's that?
do a rectangle on the
Is that a
top of
keyframe?
the symbol.
Yeah? Yeah. Well, it's not wrong. Just different. Just different. Yeah. However you figure it out. Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, tracking is an added step or two that I don't know if you need. Because think about what's moving. It's a button that literally moves vertically from top down. So you don't really need to track it because it's just a linear movement. It's literally just two keyframes. Boom, boom, one, start, finish. That's it. So that's how I would do it. I wouldn't even track it. I have, you know, when I showed you the video initially and it does it, but then there's a little dialog box that shows up and it moves with it. I did track that, and then I locked it on the y-axis so that it would jiggle back and forth as the finger might move. So I did track that, but no, this is quite literally two keyframes. Start, finish. That's how I do it. Yeah, that's how I do it. Because it's faster. It's easier, it's faster. You're not messing around with tracking, even though I did show that today. But then we did that mainly to stabilize the motion. But you're right, you could motion track it. But no, for this, I would just animate top down. Super simple. Yeah. Yes, because it was a made up, we just made it up and overlaid it. That's right, yeah, yeah. But you could do it, you could do it in After Effects too, because it could be a solid and they just put the text, but it'd just be easier to go to Photoshop. Snip it out. Yeah, that's how I do it.
I tried to copy the same color, but it still shows the text. I'm trying to find a way to take this piece out. I think we have to recreate this. Yeah. Let's go to the shade, yeah. That's easier. Because it just looks, it doesn't even make sense. It's close. And copy the same. That will be the curve. It will be the yeah, because the color is that. Yeah. I know that's fine. Oh my god. Trying to type something. I don't like Max. Because like when you try to do options, like you have to take control. I think two would be perfect. So it doesn't have to be this big, I see. I'm gonna go with the opacity. So I'll just make that. See, that's good. Probably. It's not that. We just copy and paste it. Is it? What is it? I think we can write this in there as well, so we see in this place. Change the color of this. So go to that. I was trying to hide this, in the other.